Welcome back to The Explainer. So if you just take a second and look out your window, you're seeing a vastly complex physical world. We're talking roads, forests, buildings, rivers, fields, the whole shebang. It's beautiful, sure, but it is incredibly difficult to process all that raw, messy geographical information at any kind of real scale. But what if we could translate that complex reality into a clean, interactive, and highly analytical digital format? I mean, what if we could literally put the entire world inside our computers to help solve some of our biggest problems? Well, that is exactly what we're going to unpack today.
So, the crucial question we really have to ask ourselves here is, how do we actually digitally map reality? How on earth do we take a physical plot of land with all of its completely unique characteristics and feed it into a machine in a way that actually makes sense? Well, the answer lies in a pretty revolutionary technology known as Geographic Information Systems, or GIS.
Here's a quick look at our agenda for today. First, we'll define the GIS revolution. Second, we'll look at the 5 core components of GIS. Third, we'll compare raster versus vector data. And finally, we'll jump into some practical application using QGIS.
All right, Section 1, defining the GIS revolution. Let's get into exactly what GIS is.
Okay, so GIS stands for Geographic Information System. Let's break that down a bit. The geographic part is the spatial feature. That's the actual geometric orientation or location on Earth, defined by your standard X and Y coordinates. Next up is information. These are the attributes, the non-spatial features. Imagine you're looking at a plot of soil. The geographic part is exactly where that soil is located on a map, but the information part is the soil type, its texture, its depth, its total area. And finally, the system. This is the computer system that acts as the bridge. It actually stores the spatial location data and the non-spatial attribute data separately, but, and this is the genius part, it establishes a dynamic link between them.
And you know, this technology actually has a surprisingly rich history spanning more than 5 decades, evolving right alongside our raw computing power. We're talking from the very first operational Canadian GIS running on massive 1960s mainframes, shifting to mini computers in the 80s, all the way down to the personal PCs and workstations we use today.
Moving right along to Section 2, the 5 components of GIS. Let's look at the core ecosystem. For GIS to actually function, it integrates 5 basic components, kind of like a star. First, we've got the hardware. That's the physical computers and the GPS devices. Then the software, the programs actually running the calculations. We have the data, which is the raw spatial and non-spatial information we're out there collecting. Then there's the analysis, the methods and workflows we use to actually make sense of all that data. And finally, at the very top, we have people. The human element is absolutely crucial. These are the users and decision makers designing the systems and interpreting the results. If you remove even one point of this star, the whole system just collapses.
But when you successfully bring those 5 components together, you unlock a system capable of managing data across a staggering array of fields. GIS is incredibly interdisciplinary. It powers everything from cartography and military strategy to land management and civil engineering. It's used in agriculture, forestry, and even by health services to track disease outbreaks. It literally touches almost every aspect of how we manage our modern world.
Let's jump into Section 3, raster versus vector data. This is how we actually model the real world.
Think about the real world as a continuous flowing landscape. Maybe you have a lake, a river, some marshland, and a forest. But a computer can't process raw reality like that. It has to separate those spatial components into digital models. So reality conceptually splits into 2 completely different planes, a vector plane and a raster plane. These are the 2 primary data models we use in GIS to represent reality.
Let's contrast them directly so you can see the difference. The raster format uses a strict grid of square cells to model reality. It's kind of like a digital photograph made up of tiny pixels. A shape is defined just by filling in specific squares on that grid, and these are often saved as TIFF files. The vector format, on the other hand, totally discards the grid. It uses discrete representations by plotting exact X and Y coordinates. It connects those points to create vertices and then closes them to form polygons. You'll usually see these saved as shapefiles.
All right, Section 4, practical application with QGIS. Let's put this into action. Enter QGIS. Now, the greatest barrier to entry for GIS technology used to be the immense cost of the software. It was highly specialized. But QGIS completely flipped the script. It is a completely free, open-source, cross-platform desktop application. You can literally download it right now, install it on your machine, and suddenly you have the power to view, edit,
print, and analyze complex geospatial data. It's a real game changer.
Picture this. You are out in the field with a handheld GPS, capturing X and Y coordinates at various waypoints. You get back to your computer, and that data goes straight into Excel. The vital first step to getting your field data into QGIS is just taking that standard spreadsheet and saving it as a CSV, a simple comma-delimited text file.
Once you have that CSV ready, QGIS takes over the heavy lifting. You open up the processing toolbox and select Vector Creation, because remember, we are mapping discrete points here. You input your file, map the X and Y columns so the software knows exactly which is which, and then set your coordinate reference system, something like UTM Zone 37N. You hit Run, and boom! That boring spreadsheet instantly transforms into a rich, interactive, visual vector point layer right there on your digital map.
Now, you might be wondering, why does this all matter? Why go through the effort of learning about raster grids, vector polygons, and importing CSVs? Because at the end of the day, this technology empowers people to make real, tangible changes in the world. The source material for today's explainer actually comes from a basic training manual designed for a very specific, incredibly impactful purpose. The manual states its goal is to develop skill on measuring and reporting irrigated wheat farm plots in South Ethiopia region with the help of GPS and QGIS. By mastering these exact tools, agricultural workers in Ethiopia can accurately measure their crop yields, report on those irrigated farm plots with high-accuracy GPS, and ultimately optimize their food production. That is the true, incredible power of GIS. It translates digital data directly into human survival and progress.
So we've gone from the very conceptual definition of linking geographic coordinates with attribute data all the way down to mapping real-world wheat farms using open-source software. The barrier to entry has quite literally never been lower. And the potential applications, they're absolutely limitless. So my final question to you is this. Now that you understand the fundamental mechanics of geographic information systems, what reality will you map next?